A defendant walks into a courtroom. The court doesn't start by asking, is this person guilty? It starts with a presumption, innocent until proven guilty. The burden is on the prosecution to show beyond a reasonable doubt that something is off. Hypothesis testing works the same way. You have a null hypothesis, H0, that's innocent, and an alternative hypothesis, H1, that's guilty. You start by assuming the null is true. Then you look at the evidence and ask, is this enough to reject it? Let's make this concrete. Say a factory claims their light bulbs last 1,000 hours on average. That's the null hypothesis. Μ equals 1,000. The alternative says the mean is something different. Μ is not equal to 1,000. Now, if H0 is true, and we test 36 bulbs with a known standard deviation of 50, the central limit theorem tells us something beautiful. The sample mean follows a normal distribution centered right at 1000 with a standard error of 50 over the square root of 36. This bell curve is what the world looks like if H0 is true, the null world. You test 36 bulbs and get a sample mean of 985 hours. Is 985 far enough from 1000 to be suspicious? Well, that depends on how much variability you'd expect. We need a ruler, and that ruler is the z-score. It takes your observed mean, subtracts the claimed mean, and divides by the standard error. Let's plug in the numbers. 985 minus 1000 over 50 divided by the square root of 36. That gives us negative 1.80. So our sample mean sits 1.8 standard errors below the claimed average. Now comes the key question. If H0 is actually true, how likely are we to see a z-score as extreme as negative 1.8? We plot the standard normal curve. This is the distribution of z under the null, and we shade the area beyond our observed z. For a two-sided test, we shade both tails, everything below negative 1.8 and everything above positive 1.8. The total shaded area is the p-value. It comes out to about 0.072, a 7.2% chance of seeing data this extreme if the null hypothesis is actually true. We need a threshold, a line in the sand. That's alpha, the significance level, and the standard choice is 0.05. The rule is simple. If the p-value is less than alpha, we reject H0. If it's greater or equal, we fail to reject. Notice the careful wording. We never say accept H0. We just don't have enough evidence to throw it out. In our case, 0.072 is greater than 0.05, so we fail to reject. The data is a bit suspicious, but not suspicious enough. But here's the thing, you can always be wrong. If H0 is actually true and you reject it anyway, that's a type 1 error, a false positive. If H1 is true, but you fail to reject H0, that's a type 2 error, a false negative. Alpha controls the type 1 error rate. It's the probability of convicting an innocent null hypothesis. Let's put it all together. Here's the null distribution. What the z-score looks like if H0 is true. The red shaded tails are the rejection region set by alpha equals 0.05. Any z-score beyond plus or minus 1.96 leads to rejection. Now imagine the alternative is actually true. The real mean is different from 1000. That gives us a second bell curve shifted away from 0. The overlap between these two curves is where mistakes happen. The green area, the part of the alternative that falls in the rejection region, that's the power. It's the probability of correctly rejecting a false null hypothesis. The further apart these two curves sit, the easier it is to tell them apart. More separation means more power, fewer mistakes, and that's basically it. If you found this helpful, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and drop a comment if you have any questions. See you in the next one. Bye bye.